Hi guys, welcome to the Wrestling Retrospective, and in this video I'll be doing the review of AEW Full Gear 2024. So kicking off the show, we saw Private Party successfully retain the World Tag Team Championships against the Acclaimed, the Outrunners, and the House of Black, or Kings of the Black Throne. For me, this is a very high-octane match. The winners totally made sense. Private Party, have just become champions. It would have made pretty silly sense and maybe even buried them a little if they had lost the title so quickly. The match itself, as I said, was high-octane but very standard as far as four-way tags go. Nothing of real note happened apart from the good athletics of the likes of Private Party, Malachi Black, and Anthony Bowens. Speaking of, there was a lot of concentration on the Acclaimed kind of splitting up and the internal struggles that they're having more recently, from the entrance with Max Caster launching the microphone at Anthony Bowens, and also just Max Caster not really concentrating on the match. And when he was very aggressive compared to usual. He also flipped off the crowd, which is Bowens' hometown crowd, or at least close by hometown, so of course that was going to cause issues. I think for me, when it comes to the Acclaimed, I know that Max Caster has the Hurt Syndicate card. Personally, I would rather have Anthony Bowens join the Hurt Syndicate, just because I feel like out of the two, he's probably more of the Shawn Michaels and Caster's more of the Jannetty. But that's my personal opinion. I feel like Bowens is just the better wrestler and overall character than Max Caster. Personally, really disappointed that Kings of the Black Throne didn't get the win here. I would have loved to have seen House of Black become World Tag Team Champions, but it didn't massively surprise me. I did expect that was going to be the case, but Buddy Matthews did get a win on the pre-show, which was good. But yeah, as I said, overall, it was decent. I think, as I said, the two main teams in this were the Acclaimed and Private Party. House of Black did a fair bit. The Outrunners were pretty, I don't really remember anything they did during the match, to be fair, so I was expecting a lot more out of them, especially with the build they seem to be going for. But yeah, I said, it was a good match. It wasn't bad in any way. It was just very bog standard for a four-way tag. Following that, we had MJF beat Roderick Strong in, again, a decent match. The majority of it had a slower pace, which I was not expecting, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It worked really well for these two. It wasn't like this classic that we're used to MJF putting on. It felt like he was holding back to a certain point. But yeah, I was surprised that Strong tapped out. I assumed it was just going to be I suppose he doesn't have his Dynamite Diamond ring anymore. He gave it to Don Callis, but I assumed he was going to cheat in some kind of way and roll him up, but no. Strong tapped out after a bad injury to the hand, to Salt of the Earth, I think it was. But yeah, the limb targeting is a very 2K thing, but that's how I see it. Of Roderick Strong's hand was really good throughout the match from MJF. Might as well taking out Strong after the match made perfect sense as far as MJF goes. It's very a him thing to do. What I did like was Kyle O'Reilly coming down and kind of getting in Adam Cole's face and pushing him down, because he warned him on Dynamite about this happening, and Cole still didn't do anything much about it. I was surprised that Cole didn't accompany Strong down to the ring, or the Kingdom for that case. But yeah, so the match itself was fine. It wasn't quite to the standard of MJF that I'm used to seeing, but for the most part was decent. Good showing from Roderick Strong. The result made sense, and it definitely seems like we're going to get Cole and MJF at World's End. After that, we had Mercedes Moné successfully retain the TBS Championship against Kris Statlander in a match that was very, very good, and I feel like the response it's got online is well earned and completely right. This was a fantastic match. Up to this point, it was the best match of the night. It was a very close second to the main event as far as match of the night goes. It was very, very good. You could tell these two had great chemistry together. Statlander made Moné really earn this one, and it also helped Statlander look strong in defeat. And yeah, I think for me, and I would say this, is the fact that Moné, as far as Moné goes, this has been her best match in AEW so far. The match against Willow at Double or Nothing was pretty good. Obviously, the Britt Baker match was not very good at all. The match against Shida was decent. The ones on TV have been alright. But yeah, this by far was not only her toughest match, as she said in the media scrum, but yeah, definitely her best match in AEW so far. I thought Statlander was going to get the win after the very close to the following sequence when she kind of went for Saturday Night Fever. I forgot what she reversed it out of. But when she hit that, I was fully expecting her to get the win and, you know, Mone kicked out, which was great. But yeah, though, what I did like about this is that it did become more unpredictable as the match went on. You know, the facial expressions that I don't feel like get talked about enough in wrestling. You know, facial expressions from Mercedes Mone play a lot as far as like how tough Statlander is. And well, tougher than like we know she's very strong, but like tough isn't like a tough opponent to beat. And yeah, everything just seemed to click really well with this one. And yeah, I said like everything just worked out very well. It was very, very good. Honestly, if you haven't watched it, go and check this one out. It was probably one of the better women's matches of the year. Following that, we had Jay White defeat Hangman Adam Page in a match that was fine. It was decent. I feel like it was better than their Wrestle Dream match, but it feels like still they were holding back a little bit. I'd like to see these two kind of go at it with they're both 100%. Obviously, the ankle being targeted by Hangman as for Jay White, and Jay White targeting Hangman's knee played a big part in this match. But for the most part of the start of the match, what worked really well for me was the quickness of Switchblade and the methodical, or like the new methodical and slower pace of Hangman Page. They complemented each other really well, in my opinion. Yeah, I really like the new style of Hangman Page, where he kind of just, as soon as Jay White's ankle was hurt, he went straight for it and would not leave it alone for a while into the match. And yeah, I thought that the two Dead Eyes from Hangman was going to give him the win, but wasn't the case. Yeah, I think I was surprised that Jay White won. I thought that we would go 1-1 in this feud. I know that Jay White's had multiple wins over Hangman in the past, but for this feud, I thought that we'd go 1-1 and then go to a third match. I feel like we are going to set up for a third match at some point, but it won't go on to World's End. It'll probably just be on a special Dynamite, as around this time of year, there's a lot of special Dynamites. There's a lot of special Dynamites. You know, we've got Thanksgiving Eve this week, we've got Winter is coming in a few weeks, we've also got Holiday Bash and New Year's Smash coming up, so I think there's enough kind of time to be able to have a third match between those two where maybe Hangman gets the momentum back and kind of beats Jay White here and then moves on to something else. But yeah, I do worry the fact that Hangman is losing on pay-per-view a lot. I know that he got the win at All Out, but yeah, it just seems as if, you know, though he's losing a lot and it's probably going to send him even more crazy or something like that, it just, like, as far as stats go for him year-wise, he's had a good year, yet a lot of losses, which I'm not really a fan of. After that, we had Kyle Fletcher defeat Will Ospreay in a very quick face match from the beginning. It went a little bit longer than I felt like it needed to. I feel like there was multiple times where Kyle Fletcher could have very easily pinned Ospreay for the 3, and that would have been it. But it was very good nonetheless. Again, it was probably a close third for match of the night for me. I know that a lot of people praise this match a lot, but I do feel like Mone and Statlander was a bit better than it. It was a huge win for Kyle Fletcher. I'm glad that kind of they had Will Ospreay lose here. It felt like a necessary loss for him, especially as a lot of people assumed that he was going to be pretty untouchable this year. But he's had taken 4 losses, which I think is pretty decent as well. It doesn't really hurt him a lot. Yeah, I love how Ospreay had to do that little bit extra on everything because Kyle Fletcher knows him so well. Yeah, and you could kind of see it in a way because like he had to go that 1 extra move or 2 extra moves just because Fletcher was avoiding or escaping all kind of moves from him. The brutal tombstone on the steel steps was a highlight for me. I saw a lot of people like, okay, not a lot of people, but some people say like how the commentators overreacted because of the whole WWE Kevin Owens and Randy Orton thing. I don't think that was the case. I feel like a pile driver on the stairs is a pretty brutal move. But yeah, for me, Ospreay was done way before the actual finish was. I know that kind of helps put across his resiliency and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, for me, it just didn't really compute that way for me. And like, for me, it like, I feel like the first pile driver that was done probably could have been it, as in like the first pile driver of the finish. But yeah, I said it was fine. Fletcher, in my opinion, I know I joke about it a lot and it's kind of thing, but Kyle Fletcher no-sold like a future world champion, especially in the closing sequence of this. But yeah, so Fletcher fully deserved this win, and I think it's going to really set him up for what I hope will be a very good Continental Classic for him, which will then set up him to be like one of the main people in AEW for years and years to come. Next up, we had the Championship Celebration for Mariah May with Mina Shirakawa, and for me, I'm very, very happy that Mina watches my videos, and the last thing I said in my predictions was that Mina is not safe, and luckily she saw Mariah May's attack coming. She kicked that bottle of champagne out of her hand seamlessly. Like, I don't think people realize how impressive it was. They were in heels, and Mina Shirakawa got that bottle spot on and kicked it out of her hand. It was fantastic. And then she did spear her off the side of the stage through 2 tables, even though it was technically through 1. Mina bleeding from the mouth, looking an absolute psycho, and gave Mariah May the kiss of death, possibly, to her AEW World Championship. For me, yeah, this was great. It was a great way of setting up Mina versus Mariah, which I assume will happen at World's End. I can't see them doing it any time before that, as I feel like we're going to get a Toni Storm and Mariah May-esque build to that match at World's End. Something I'm very much looking forward to. It makes sense that this was going to be one of the feuds that Mariah May has for the World Championship, and it's almost sad that they've taken so long to get to this point, but then Mina has had to go back to Japan, and I'm sure the reason why she was in Japan is going to get revealed eventually as well. If not, Mariah already knows, and that's why she turned on her. But yeah, feud I'm very much looking forward to. I do question or not whether this should have been on the pay-per-view though. After that, we had Daniel Garcia defeat Jack Perry to become the new TNT champion, and again, a slower paced match than I was expecting, but again, it kind of worked really well for these two, especially when it came to Jack Perry, who was definitely trying to dictate the pace of the match a lot more. But yeah, it worked really well between those two. Perry controlled the match for the most part, in my opinion, targeting the neck of Garcia perfectly for someone who very clearly has neck issues because of the feud with MJF. I think it was a good proving match for Garcia's resiliency and deep water matches. I know he's kind of shown it before, especially against MJF earlier this year, but yeah, this was a really good showing for him. As I said, it was a good proving match even though he won. Obviously, he's about to go into the Continental Classic. He did struggle with it last year as far as just wins go, but I expect him to have a very much better tournament this year round. Especially as TNT champion. Of course, any losses, I think the only risk with having him in the Continental Classic is that any losses he takes will then maybe lead to TNT championship matches for whoever beats him, unless they go on to win the Continental Classic, of course. But yeah, for me, the only real and small issue I had with this match is that Garcia has to work smarter now he's a champion. MJF and Jack Perry both outsmarted him when it came to trying to cheat. For me, it's just he's been fucked over so many times that it makes sense that Garcia would have them figured out by now. But again, they did one little thing that distracted the referee and he got low blowed. It happened at All Out. It happened here. He kind of needs to figure that part out next, especially with him being a babyface, so he's going to be facing a lot of heels for his championship. Now he's got a lot to lose, unlike these other matches where he's not had that much to lose. But yeah, for me though, Daniel Garcia is a well-deserved champion. It's been a long time coming for him. And yeah, I just hope they don't ruin him now that he is champion like AEW have done before with people. I'm hoping this elevates him more to the point where he can challenge Moxley for the World Championship at some point. But yeah, I thought this was a great choice of having him be a TNT champion. It wouldn't surprise me if Jack Perry kind of disappeared for a bit with the Young Bucks and having the Elite kind of slowly be faded out of TV to then put more concentration on the Death Riders. I did say that during my predictions as well. But yeah, this was a really good match and a deserving champion won it in Daniel Garcia. Following that, we had Takeshita successfully retain the International Championship against Ricochet. For me, it was a match of two halves. Takeshita won the first half of the match, Ricochet won the second half of the match. It was a solid first defense from Takeshita, first AEW defense for Takeshita. I know that he defended it in the Maple Leaf Pro and somewhere else as well, I think. I think it was New Japan Strong, I think. But don't quote me on that, I don't watch New Japan. Yeah, I think Takeshita was very dominant in the first 10-15 minutes of the match, and I mean very dominant. I don't think Ricochet got a single offensive move in, or maybe one or two. It was very one-sided. But yeah, I think for me, again, they went with a lot of injury-heavy people in this one. So this time it was Ricochet's back that took a big hurting from Takeshita. That came from a brutal post shot. I think this is the one where the post shot came in. Where I think it was that one. It might have been Orange and Moxley. Either way, someone got put into the post, and because they're square shaped and not circle, their back went straight into the post. It was grim. But yeah, and is the thing. That's the only thing that really took away from me was the fact that Ricochet had a hurt back throughout this whole match, and he was doing shit that he wouldn't be able to do with a hurt back. He was doing suicide dives, but instead of just doing a regular one, he was doing all flippy ones and stuff like that, and it really didn't make sense why he would be going for those moves if he has a hurt back. But yeah, for me, what especially started to take the piss was Ricochet. Again, very hurt back. Did a deadlift German suplex to Takeshita. Takeshita's not a small guy. He's massive. Yeah, it just kind of took away from me. The only comparison I have of that is there was a match a while ago. I can't remember who else was in it. But Dustin Rhodes had a bum knee for the whole match and then did a Canadian Destroyer out of nowhere. And it made zero sense why he would do that. But yeah, either way, it's just not... Either way, not a problem. It's just little quirks like that just annoy me a little bit. But I'm glad that that hurt back thing did play into the finish. And I think it was only a superplex that finished the match, or as a... I can't remember exactly what the finish was for this one as far as the last move. I know it was off the top rope, but it isn't Takeshita's regular finisher, which put him down for 3, which for me shows... the variety of Takeshita's finishers reminded me a lot of Gunther, where you don't really know where the finish is going to come from Takeshita, which makes his matches a lot more unpredictable as far as even if you know he's winning, you don't know when he's going to win, which is really cool to have in your arsenal. I know that anyone can do that, but 9 times out of 10 someone hits their finisher and wins. So yeah, that was a big positive. So again, it was a good match. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. We know Ricochet can absolutely go. Takeshita's going to be one of the wrestlers of the year next year. And yeah, I expected a little bit more from them, but what we got was still not bad. It was still perfectly fine. Following that, we had Bobby Lashley defeat Swerve Strickland in a match that was very, again, one-sided. Lashley more or less controlled the match for the most part. It was a very good showing from him. Swerve did look strong in defeat. Swerve is definitely smarter than what they gave him credit for. He got distracted in the finish by Shelton Benjamin and MVP, which just wouldn't have happened ideally. Swerve, we know, is incredibly intelligent in the ring and kind of outside the ring, manipulating people. So for him to so easily fall for a distraction just didn't make much sense in my eyes. But yeah, I said the first a bit similar to Takeshita in the last match. Lashley controlled and absolutely dominated the first 10 minutes of this one, and Swerve barely got anything in. The stomp through the table and then house call and then stomp again and only getting a 2 count was for me anyway, I thought it was Swerve peaking a little bit too early. It seemed, I don't know whether it was just a case of very good pacing from these two, but it seemed to be a very short match compared to what I was expecting. So for him to what felt like go for those moves so early and Lashley kick out really made no sense. And it didn't make Swerve look weak, it made Lashley look very good in my opinion. It just again, it's a case of I don't want Swerve to be stupider now he's a babyface. I want Swerve to still be the kind of smart, manipulative heel that we've seen him be before and throughout the whole year. So, I don't know, this kind of left a sour taste in my mouth as far as where they're going booking-wise with Swerve. But I said, I'm not sure why at the end of the match the Hurt Syndicate attacked Prince Nana. It really made no sense to me at all. But I said, yeah, the match felt really short, compared to what I was expecting out of these two, especially as we know Swerve can go long, so I don't know whether it's a case of Lashley either wanting to go short, or maybe he can only go short, because he is a fair bit older than Swerve, I think. I don't know that for sure, I'm assuming that. But, like I said, it was good. It was very good for Bobby. It wasn't the match I was expecting, as far as, I was expecting a big, impactful, long, kind of great showing from them both. I kind of got a bit of the opposite. Bobby was very dominant, but if that's by design, then fantastic way to do it. Just not sure whether they should have fed him to Swerve straight away if that was going to be the case. But yeah, I expected a lot more out of Swerve. Bobby looked really good, and the match kind of felt short. It wasn't, as I said, I feel more negative towards this match than anything else, but as I say, it wasn't a bad match. It just a bit confusing at times. And finally, in the main event, we had Jon Moxley successfully retain the AEW World Championship against Orange Cassidy in a very one-sided match. It was very much like their all-out match. And again, it was a lot better than the Full Gear match last year, a lot better than the all-out match last year. This just worked really well for me. And yeah, like, for me, just tactically, it was perfect from start to finish from Moxley. But again, tactically from Orange, the start of the match, interrupting the announcements and going straight for Moxley with orange punches, tactically was perfect from him. It made, like, I don't want to keep saying perfect, but it made perfect sense why he would do that. And it kind of made Moxley look even tougher than usual, because he just, as soon as, I've even put in my notes, as soon as Moxley gets his hands on Orange and kind of stops the offense from him, he's dead. And that was pretty much the case. Like, I kept thinking throughout the match, oh, Orange will get a second wind, get that almost 3 on Moxley, and then Moxley will just end it. And it wasn't the case. Every time Orange seemed as if he was going to get his second wind, Moxley just either reversed or escaped or got out of the way of Orange or just battered him. And it was like, pretty much the story of the match was Orange just constantly trying to overcome Moxley and just couldn't do it. No matter, like, the only bit that really got it was when he hit him with the briefcase, and yeah, even then that didn't work out for him. So yeah, I liked the fact that the referee had a lot of leniency in this one. It's a match that kind of could have done with the no DQ stipulation, but then a lot of people would have questioned why the Blackpool Combat Club, the Death Riders wouldn't just get involved. So yeah, I'm glad that they kind of gave that leniency throughout the match. And yeah, I say, apart from the first 2 minutes, Moxley absolutely destroyed Cassidy, which made perfect sense. It's what he's going for. And the whole Death Riders getting involved, you know, to help Moxley get the win with the Wheeler Yuta doing the Psycho knee made perfect sense. Moxley said, and has said since WrestleDream, he will do whatever it takes to get a win and to make AEW a better place. And that's exactly what he did. So kind of having that interference and distraction and all that good stuff made sense here, which is not a lot of time we get to see kind of interference make sense, but this was one of those few times it happened. For me, if this is the way Moxley's going to wrestle from now and onwards against whoever he comes up against for the World Championship, I'm here for it. I very much enjoyed it. I like the fact it was so one-sided, but when Orange or anyone does get Moxley on his back, it feels impactful. Even if they don't get the win, the fact that they dropped him even for a few minutes, they make it feel like they earned to drop him. You know, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense, but for me, that's kind of how it went. After the match, we saw Christian Cage. Well, I don't know. Like they tried to make Cassidy consume some kind of chemical, which seemed very random. But I kind of get it if they want to take him out for a while. Then Hangman Page came into the match, came into the ring with Moxley and they faced off, which for a second I was so confused. I couldn't figure out why Hangman would want to take out Moxley. And then it turned out that it was to help Christian Cage, which makes perfect sense. They've recently tagged together. They have maybe some kind of gentleman's agreement where if Hangman can help Cage, Cage will give him some kind of world title match. And, you know, Hangman's whole point is wants to be world champion, so you know, it makes sense that he would help Cage get the win for the world championship here. But that wouldn't be the case. Jay White squandered all that and the Death Riders escaped. They got to the back where their car got crashed into by Darby Allin, which again makes perfect sense. Darby cannot stand these guys. They're one of the people that actually went out to help Danielson at WrestleDream. I'm surprised though, because I assumed that the next match for Moxley was then going to be Darby Allin at World's End. But Darby Allin's in the Continental Classic, so there's a chance that Darby might be busy come World's End. I don't think he will be, because of I can't see him getting into the finals or anything of the Continental Classic leagues. which then might open him up for then. But I assume they're going to want a longer build for a world title feud with Moxley, so I'm not sure who it's going to be, because Daniel Garcia and Darby Allin are in the Continental Classic, so maybe we're going to get someone who I've not even thought about challenging Moxley or at World's End. But yeah, for me, this was match of the night. I thought it worked really well. I know that it was, as I said, very one-sided matches don't tend to get match of the night, but yeah, it just worked perfectly for me. I love the way Moxley's wrestling at the minute. It made Orange look very good in defeat. And yeah, I look forward to seeing these two probably come back around again when Moxley will eventually lose the world title to either Orange or Darby Allin, I assume is where we're going with this one. But, you know, as I said, for the most part, was very, very good. I felt like the tease cash-in of Christian Cage wasn't needed. But we got it anyway. It was fine. It set up Jay White's thing with Hangman again and Jay White and Cage for the future. And yeah, just very, very good main event overall. So those are my thoughts and opinions on AEW Full Gear 2024. Overall, I thought it was a great show. I thought that like the things that clicked really did really well. You know, Statlander and Mercedes Moné killed it for the women. Moxley and Orange was a great main event. The other match that I got, Ospreay and Carl Fletcher, was a great match and really set up Carl Fletcher for the future. And like there was really no bad matches in this card. Like some of them were just good, some of them were great, some of them were fantastic. And there was nothing that really dragged the card down in my opinion. As I said, the only thing that I'd really complain about is the fact that we didn't need the championship celebration on Full Gear. I felt like we could have done that on a Dynamite, but you know, I feel like the fact that we're not having another women's match and we're having just one in Mercedes and Statlander, it made sense that they put the women on in that case. But yeah, I said, other than that, I have no real complaints about this. It was very, very good. So yeah, what did you guys think of the show overall? Do put it down in the comments below. Any feedback for me would be great. The Patreon is still up. There's like a good 20 odd matches on watch along to be able to check out on there. It's completely free to join. And yeah, I go through I go through both my top 100 matches. I watch them back that I recently put on the channel, and I do the wrestling revisit where I go back and watch matches that I can't really remember being that good, but maybe they are. I don't know. It's the kind of thing where I just kind of rewatch matches that I feel like should be good on paper, but I don't remember for whatever reason. And yeah, so if you enjoyed the video, do give it a like, do subscribe to the channel. Plenty of wrestling content coming over the Christmas period and over the next month. There's stuff like, you know, Survivor Series content, Deadline. I've got some landscape of wrestling videos coming out where I'm going to talk about things that AEW and WWE need to improve on for 2025, in my opinion. My top 10 matches, my top 10 pay-per-views of the year is going up, and I've done a video about dream matches I want to see in 2025. So yeah, a lot of content coming up on the channel, so do stick around, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later.